The X Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
I'm a loser. I'm a loser. And I'm not what I appear to be. Of all the love I have won or have lost, there is one love I should never have crossed. She was a girl in a million, my friend. I should have known she would win in the end. I'm a loser, and I lost someone who's near to me. I'm a loser.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. You know, most people, when you talk to them about a telephone booth, they think of Superman running in as Clark Kent, in a blink of an eye changing, getting out of his Clark Kent outfit, bang, Superman flying into the blue to help save someone, a planet in distress, whatever the case. But here on the X Zone, it's been our findings that when somebody goes to a phone booth, it's Kal Korff. Because, as you know, Kal hasn't been on the show for nearly 2 years now, with good reason. He is in Prague, and he used to do our segments from a telephone booth, and it was so funny because we'd say, you know, we can hear a truck going by, or people would ask him, apparently, when he would be out of the telephone booth, because they needed it as well. Kal Korff is a legend in his own mind. But this isn't just my opinion, and there is a growing group of people called Korffers out there who are doing everything they can to bring to an end the lies, the deceit, the fraud being perpetrated, including impersonating a member of the military, which is called stolen valor. Joining me this hour to let us know what the Korffers are up to and what they have discovered about Kal Korff is FN. That's all we're going to use is FN, because not unlike any other organization that works behind the scenes, they too have asked for their identifications to be confidential. Now, we know who this is. We know the credibility behind the person. But in order to respect his wishes, we are just going to call him FN. Joining me now from somewhere in the United States is FN. FN, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you, Rob. At some point, most of us will say, or public names some have, like Jimmy D and such. The reason I have to do it this way is until we cross the T and dot the I's sometime in March, I can't let my information pathway dry up. And with your experience with Kal Korff,
Sure.
If you get on his perceived bad side, the information will indeed dry up. So I'm not afraid of him. I'm afraid of losing my information path.
And we respect that, FN. Kal Korff has many, many levels of sanity, all of which are in total question. He is basically a liar. a fraud, a figment of his own imagination. But I know for a fact in the past that what he says has done damage. I can only think of that gentleman in Prague that fell victim to Kal Korff and his iPods fiasco a couple of years ago. We've got about a minute before I have to take my break, FN. What, in your opinion, is wrong with Kal?
From what I can tell after doing this for 5 years is that much of what he says is based on a small nugget of truth or an experience that he had in high school or his earlier years, and he's confabulated on actual events that have happened for the most part, and he's Walter Mitty'd it into what he presented to you on your show for those 2 years of time. Is he ill? I don't know. I can't make that call. Does he confabulate and outright lie? Yes, he does.
All right.
I don't know what's wrong with him.
Okay, stand by, FN. We have to take a commercial break. My name's Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. FN is our special guest of this hour. We're talking about Kal Korff. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break. Don't go away.
Someone who's near to me, I'm a loser.
If I could turn the page in time, then I'd rearrange just a day or two. Close my eyes, but I couldn't find a way. So I'll settle for one day to believe in you. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
FN is our special guest of this hour. We're talking about the legend in his own mind, the one and only Kal Korff, who apparently is in Czechoslovakia still. And FN, I was wondering if you might be able to help me put a piece to the puzzle that nobody's been able to supply me with. And I know that you and the other Korffers have done a fantastic job of trying to build a confirmation history on Kal. Why did Kal leave the United States? You know, it's like he disappeared for 2 years. 1 minute he's in Seattle, the next minute, 2 years later, he pops up in Czechoslovakia.
As with all morphine activities, assumption takes a great role in it because he's sneaky. By the way, he's in India now. He moved to India about a year ago to marry a claimed Indian princess, but we can get into that later.
Sure.
It seems as though his mother has Czech background, so he got interested with it there, I suppose. And then the rumors are he left because he didn't want to get his ass kicked. He left because he was going to get sued. He left because he burnt his bridges. But in all truth, that is something that we haven't been able to confirm because only his direct family is going to know. And for obvious reasons, we can't contact him. But we do have plans in the works to try to meet with family members to try to clear that.
Yeah, you know, it was like he was very involved with Bob Kiviat, who had done a number of productions in the U.S. He did America's Greatest Hoaxes, Debunked, I believe it was. Kal was supposed to be an expert on that panel, and the next thing you know, Kal's just disappeared, and then bang, shows up again in Czechoslovakia. I remember we had booked him several times to go one-on-one with Kevin Randall, who he blatantly talked in a very negative connotation about Kevin. And every time that he was scheduled, Kevin was available, but Kal always backed away. And
Yeah. I will give Kal some props. Okay, I'm not like an Cal person guy. I find him very entertaining, and like you said, he's burnt some people and hurt some people, and we just decided to take on the case. I will say that when he went onto YouTube and he started to review Randall's book, issue for issue, that was a clarity that I had never seen before. Very interesting way to disseminate your information clearly. Hold the book up and say, here's what it says and here's why I think it's not correct. The issue is the little man that he is, and the soldier he wishes to be, the secret agent he wishes to be, the broadcaster like yourself he wishes to be. That ego and misplaced sort of ego and the personality type gets in the way, and he lashes out. He did it to you. He did it to Don Ecker. He did it to Kevin Randall. And when push comes to shove, he wouldn't confront Randall. He wouldn't confront Ecker. He wouldn't confront anyone.
Well, he did confront Michael Horn. He did confront Michael Horn, and
that's true.
And you know what? Once again, with Michael Horn, there was supposed to be this video made pro-con. That never happened. He was supposed to be getting millions of dollars from backing from, I don't even remember where it was, from a Saudi prince or some money from the East. That never happened. He was supposed to have signed an astronomical number of books to be written and authored by himself with Prometheus Press. That never happened. He was supposed, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And you know what? Speaking about what happened in Prague, it's a wonder that the Prague police didn't get a hold of him and throw him in jail for what he did to that gentleman.
From the Korffers who are based in that general area, the assumption is that he did get some heat on a couple of fronts. One is that issue with the iPod and the MacBook scam, and the other is that he posted a video up on the internet that showed him supposedly putting nano dust in the soil in Pakistan, and you can find this stuff up on UFO WatchCat.com or freecurtis.org sometime in March, but he was turned in by Korffers to the Pakistanis because you could imagine, Rob, do they want some guy putting anything in their soil, regardless if it's an empty vial or whatever? And our assumption is that some heat came down on him and he felt better to go to a third world country like India where he can live cheap and,
Well, we checked out his so-called credentials with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Canadian Security Intelligence Services, and contacts that we have within the Justice Department and Homeland Security in the United States. And no one heard of Kal Korff. No one ever heard of the S3. The Israeli government did not even hear of that organization within their own country. And yet here's this guy telling the world that he's a secret agent. And the nanodust? Oh, come on. We had it checked out by a professor at McMaster University, and it was nothing.
Yes, we had a number of people check in, especially a well-known professional soldier named Dale Dye, who's been on movies, and he's on a Southern California radio station, and he looked into it, which surprised me that he would, and he basically said, I checked with bona fides. This guy is a joker. Don't waste your time.
What about the claims that he had something to do with the JFK case, the O.J. Simpson case? Whatever happened with all that?
In 1978 and 79, he did do with a research partner who he hasn't really publicized, a Richard Kocher, I think. They did actually do some work on the JFK assassination and contacted some people in Washington and said, here's what we found. And it was actually published in his junior yearbook, one little article on that. The interesting story of that is that he says that he was then pulled out of class. It was his social science class. We've checked on this. And he was actually pulled out over the public address system, but nobody knows why. And the tale he tells is that they contacted him, wanted all of his data, yada, yada, yada. And his partner, Richard, who we contacted was never contacted or interviewed or anything. But again, there's a little bit of truth that he was pulled out of class, but there's no confirmation it was for that. As far as the OJ thing goes, we actually contacted Dan Petrocelli, and he was the head of the OJ civil case prosecution, and he said, no. I've never heard of this guy. And again, Rob, Kal Korff is not a name you're going to forget. And Kal also floated in Curtis Korff's court case up in Oregon that he was in touch with Barry Scheck, who was the other side of the case, and we contacted him, and he said, no, we've never heard of Kal Korff either.
All right. FN, we're having a bit of audio problems with your signal, so if we do lose you, we're going to call you back. I know that you're on the road right now, so the signal is breaking up. But here's another question. How many different titles has your research within the KORFFER community found that over the years Kal has given himself?
We have approximately 36 titles and 150 claims, and we stopped at 150 because we can only confirm so many.
What do we know about his real private life? There were rumors that he was married, that he had a son. Does he really have a son? Was he ever married? Is he married now to the so-called or alleged Indian princess?
All unconfirmable. It seems as though he may have gotten married in 1999 to an Armenian. It lasted 4 months. He says he had a son with genius capabilities from that, but yet 10 years later, he was conversing with an old high school flame or friend of his, saying that he must have children, and this was 10 years later. And as far as the Indian princess, he could very well be married to somebody in India. What of interest, though, is he uses Facebook and another site of his main portals to put his information out. It took him a year to change his Facebook from single to married, no name, no photos, no joy, no nothing. So by behavior, we base a lot of this on behavior. That's the behavior of a person who had freshly gotten married or is married. We just don't think so. But then again, he could be married. He's an interesting character study.
He sure is. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll free. My name is Rob McConnell. Our guest is FN, and I'm told that we have just lost FN. We will reestablish the connection. I know that we were having some some audio difficulties. Apparently, FN is en route using a cell phone. So we will reconnect with FN as we get on the other side of the news, or during the news we will. Once again, we're talking about Kal Korff. Is he a colonel? We can't find anything to prove that Kal Korff is a member of any legitimate military, according to the RCMP, CSIS, and other members of law enforcement. They have never heard of Kal Korff. They have never heard of the S3 that he claims to be part of. No one can find out if where he received his rank of colonel from. Why does he do this? How many people has he hurt over the years that he has been playing this little charade? And what makes a person want to do what he is doing? More about Kal Korff with FN. And we're going to also find out what the Korffers have found out when we return to this place, the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. I'll be back on the other side of this break with FN here in the X Zone.
Hi, this is Ken Elliott. When I'm floating around the universe, I always try to tune in to Rob McConnell.
Hi ho there, Trinity Frog on Sesame Street. When I want to find out what's going on with UFOs or ghosts, I listen to the X Zone with Rob McConnell.
This is Les Corrigan from Target Internet Development. You're listening to Rob McConnell on the X Zone Radio Show.
This is John Hogue, prophecy scholar, and you're listening to Rob McConnell in the X Zone.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Lies, lies, you're telling me that you'll be true. Lies, lies, that's all I ever get from you. Tears, tears, I shed a million tears for you.
Welcome back, everyone. FN is our special guest. We were able to reconnect with FN over the news, and we're talking about Kal Korff, and FN is one of the Korffers who are out there. They're doing research left, right, and center. They're finding out the facts, the true story about Kal Korff. And why are you guys doing this?
I can't speak for the rest of the guys. I know that a couple of guys in Prague are very irritated with him with what he did to the humanitarian with the iPod scam, where he bought some iPods from the Cables and Sims and then sent the bill to the humanitarian, and things blew up in his face, and he put those two interesting videos on YouTube, which we poached, and he then pulled those off. I know they're not happy about that. Speaking for myself, I will say that I had some interaction with him in the 90s, and then I'm kind of, well, I won't get into that, but it's more that I kind of know him. I've read a couple of his books, and then I saw the videos and things, and it turned into almost an obsession with me to watch the videos and then check into his claims. And the more I got into it, and the more he started to mess with you, Don Ecker, David Bietney, Kevin Randall, it just turned into a hobby that I need to finish. And he may have issues, Rob, but he's done he's made some poor decisions. And guys like this, much like he says about himself when he was going after David Bietney, for instance, they need to be held to the light, as Kal Korff would say. So I'm not a dastardly guy. I really don't have a super agenda here. It's just I got into it deeper and deeper. And Rob, you're a guy. I'm a guy. We get into stuff, and much to the chagrin of our wives and girlfriends, we won't let it go.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, yeah.
I remember one of the last times Kal was on, his brother was in trouble. And he said that, he was communicating with the sheriff and the district attorney, and that it was through his work, his intervention, that he ultimately got his brother off. What was all that about?
Well, we've actually got inside sources there, and that'll be on the website when we launch it. His brothers had a interesting lifestyle of criminal behavior and drugs and such, and evidently there was some issue, home invasion, etc., and a cop almost got run over, and Curtis was in the driver's seat. Curtis ended up to get shot. I won't get into all of it other than to say that on the website you will see dozens and dozens and dozens of ranting emails about Kal Korff and his expertise and the $3 million lawsuit that they will file, blah, 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 blah. And it ended up that I don't exactly know if Kal's forensic, quote-unquote, evidence helped out the case at all, and maybe there was shenanigans that were going up there, but we're more interested in his behavior that he had with his own lawyers. They did put up $5,000 to get a couple of lawyers, him and his mother. And I listened to your audio that you did with him on that, and he wouldn't answer the question, is he doing time? And of course, he did a lot of time associated with that issue, and some since then. He's in and out of jail all the time. So did he help the case in the end? Probably not. When you're sending faxes to the courthouse saying that the that the jury has been tainted, et cetera, and over and over and over again. I just cannot imagine that it was a help to the case. I can't imagine it.
Just after we lost you, before we went to the commercial break, I was talking to our listeners, and I brought up the fact that, he went from a captain to a colonel in whatever armed branch that he claims to have been in. I know of absolutely no military or no paramilitary organization that is recognized by any country that he's part of. Do you Korffers have any idea, FN, why or where this entire ranking came from?
All we can assume is that as an outgrowth of his JFK research, which he actually did, and confabulating on that, when he moved to the Czech Republic, something set him off on this freedom fighter, counterterrorism, consumer fraud tear. And we've looked into it. Other pro-soldiers have looked into it. There are non-military groups that use rankings and such, even like Wells Fargo Security, which he was part of. He was a lieutenant, supposedly, although I don't believe that on the face of it. But, yeah, that's difficult to figure out why he left the Bigfoot UFO lecturer persona and then picked up the counterterrorism consumer fraud persona and then dropped that in 2011, maybe because we were putting so much pressure on him, and picked up the Facebook accredited international investigative journalist with military vetting, similar to Levine, Art Levine, who did an article on him in the 90s. So you see that possibly, again, there's a little bit of truth to a lot of what he says, which he confabulates it to the point where I listen to your shows, Rob. Unbelievable the tales that this guy would weave on the air, and we've checked on many of them. We can't talk about them all tonight, of course.
I understand.
On the website, there are over 100 claims that, to some extent, are completely figured out, or at least through his behavior, his high school yearbooks, because it does go back that far, friends, yourself, and others. Boy, oh boy. And you picked up on it, Rob. You started to really try to pin him down.
Yes, I did.
And getting any answers from the guy was just... He would make up more lies. When you tried to pin him down on a few of these things, he said, "Oh, Rob, and by the way, we've solved the Betty and Barney Hill case." Okay, where is it? This was 4 years ago,
yeah.
Rob. Nothing.
Yeah. I must commend you, Korffers, and Don Ecker. You guys have done a great job. And hats off to you.
Well, yeah, thanks. Again, it's a guy's thing. There's a couple of women who are into it, but
you know what? It's more than that. It's more than that, because even though there are so many credible people out there, like yourselves and Don, who are doing their best to be professional, you get a schmuck like Korff on the air, and he takes everything that is good, turns it into bad, and he just adds to the lunacy that so many people believe that is involved in the internet. Like, he just proves that the internet is the biggest septic tank that man has ever created.
He's a perfect example of that. I know this is a longer segment. I did want to give you a chance to answer a question
Sure.
for me.
Definitely.
When he was on and you were starting to get information from various anonymous sources,
Yes.
again, I know that bothered you, and you did go to back him and say at least he uses his name, but now we know him as a cyber stalker and other issues. You can probably understand why we weren't willing to go public back
Yes,
then.
I do, yeah.
Because who wants to get phone calls at their place of business from a lunatic from Prague? But we've always wondered... in our opinion, our view was you didn't respond quick enough to our information that we were giving you, and I thought pragmatically, that it might have been just what you said. There's a lot of crazies on the internet. You're a busy guy. Am I going to spend a bunch of time here? You did it, and I applaud you for it, but our feeling was being so deeply into it that it took you too long.
Well, you see, Kal Korff wasn't on my mind 24 hours a day.
Sure.
Kal Korff was one of 20 guests a week. So he only deserved 1/20th. And when you're getting anonymous information, you've got to weigh it.
Yes.
And that's what we did. Now, when the preponderance of evidence was in favor of the information we were getting, and we were able to read Cal, and things weren't adding up here, and we put our resources and our time into them, and then we did what we did.
Yeah, and of course, when he tried to extend his iPod Apple scam to your listeners, I can imagine that that was one of the last straws.
That was one of them. But what he did to that man in Prague, and when we actually received calls from the company in Prague asking us for feedback, this is when we decided, hey, this guy is a loose cannon. And then when we did the investigation, where we could not find any of his claims as pertaining to the S3, this, that, and the other thing, and then the problems with his mother, and then it seems that it all came to a point, and we just said, that's it, goodbye. And the way he treated Kevin Randle, and the way he was, the way that he was just going off the deep end, it just wasn't the way that we wanted to do business, and we just severed the ties right then and there, especially when every time Kevin Randle or Michael Horn would want to go on a debate with him after a while, he would just never show. And
right. Share with us real quick how the conversation went, or however it happened through email or whatever, and what his response was when you finally cut ties with this guy.
It's what's that, going back 2.5 years? Basically, we just cut them. That was it. Goodbye. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. The entire thing with the developing of an iPod, what was it called? An iPod application for the X Zone. And other things, we started to, we got a hold of Prometheus Press too, and we found out that they had nothing to do with Cal, that he didn't have a major book deal in the offings, that, so when you find out that the guy's full of crap, and that, and like I said, it all started, his wall with us started to fall when he took advantage of that man in Prague.
Right. So to sum up, you're a busy guy. He's one of many. He's an interesting storyteller and such, and he was good on the air and such, but things started to add up against him with a little bit of research. You blew him out of the water. I know he attempted to, I won't get into it here, but he attempted to sort of humiliate you. But again, he's a little kid. He's a grade schooler in a 50-year-old body, and he does that to everybody. If he has the opportunity to try to humiliate or call somebody out, he will take that opportunity.
It's just like this whole thing with him and Martina, whoever she was. We all heard about her, but nobody ever saw her.
Yeah, well, I do have some video now on the site with her. He did take a trip to Washington with her regarding some sort of a Bigfoot thing that didn't take place. She was something of a model in Prague. I do have proof of this. She did take third in a 1994 beauty contest behind the blonde girl who was in the Terminator 3. I think her name is Loken. But there's very little that can be found of her. I tracked her down, and much like every woman he's ever had anything to do with, especially in his projects, they will not discuss him at all, and they just tell us, go away, do not put me in your material. You have a person who comes on your show, Patrick Cook, and he had some issues with him. We won't get into that now because it's long and sordid, but I contacted him, and he said, I should have thrown this guy under the bus back then, but like you, he was too busy with a show on your network, etc. When I said, do you want to come out now on another radio show, he said, absolutely, I should have done it then. So some people will step forward, but especially the women, they want nothing to do with this guy because of his cyber-stalking, bullying activities.
I do remember one thing I can tell you about that episode that we had with Korff, that the article that I published in the X-Chronicles front page about Kal Korff and others who lurk in the paranormal, he threatened to sue us. And our response was, take us to court. We want to get you into a court of law.
Yeah, that's a very common thing. When the site is launched and you go on to Korff Wars, you'll find more than a couple of dozen of these. And again, Royce Myers III from the UFO Watchdog site that he's no longer part of, he was never contacted, no paper. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Baseless threats constantly from this guy. And again, I can get worked up while we're talking about this, but guys like this who treat you and others like that, I mean, I suppose they just deserve it, Rob. They just deserve it. They want the attention. He's going to get the attention. We've gone deep, Rob. We've gone deep. We got, the birth certificates for his entire family stuff. We aren't dragging his family into it, but we're going deep enough that we can get all the articles that he crows about on his videos.
FN,
I will never post these. We're going to post it.
FN, I hate to do this, but I've got to take a commercial break.
Sure.
We'll be back in a couple of minutes. FN is my special guest. The topic, Kal Korff. Don't go away. Oh, there it is. All right, stand by. We're coming down in 8 seconds.
I think I know the song you're going to play.
Another one bites the dust.
Yep, I know it.
Oh, that's an appropriate song for Kal Korff. Another one bites the dust. But in fairness to the genre that Kal Korff likes to be part of, and I'm talking about the paranormal community, there's a lot of people within that community that make a lot of claims that could never be substantiated. Right or wrong?
Absolutely. That's one reason why, Don Ecker kind of got out of it.
Yeah.
You kind of keep your arms linked to it. Even Korff got out of it as best that he could. Sure. But this crossed the line. This crossed the line to cyber stalking, to bullying, to calling people's place of business, to calling conferences where David Bietney would be speaking and try to besmirch his name. I mean, it went on and on and on. So sure, somebody can say they got, abducted or they met Venusians or whatever. But when you get into people's personal life, they deserve to be exposed for that.
FN, you said before we went to the break about the people who do this are doing it, sometimes do it for the attention, and I fully agree with you that Korff is doing this for the attention. He can't get any other way. However, by bringing on these websites that you're part of and other Korffers are part of, isn't that going to give him the attention that he is starving for? Aren't you going to be feeding the fire?
We have talked about that, and yes, to some extent, he relishes in the critics with a K that come and talk about him and discuss him and things. What our attempt here, though, is to use his own words, his own video, his yearbooks, his friends from high school, et cetera, to basically supplant the majority of what he said. Our hope is that the balance will be so much into the fraud, confabulation, and fraud percentage that even he will look at this and say, I don't know what to do about this, because then we'll know, Rob. We'll know if he's absolutely clinically insane or whatever term you want to use if he continues on. Because anybody with a modicum of sense, when they go to this website and they see the information up there, with a few clicks of the mouse, Rob, they're going to know conclusively that the mass percentage of what he said has been confabulated and outright lies. So what can you do about that? What fight do you have left?
But what happens, FN, if after the launch of the site, now I'm just playing the devil's advocate here for a second, that instead of him saying, "Oh, this is nuts, the picture's been painted, everybody knows everything about me now," that he just continues?
I wouldn't put it past him, Rob, but we've already seen a huge change in him with all the information that we put on the calsanidiot.blogspot.com, and now with the website that puts it all together. We've seen a change. He's jettisoned his S3 agent consumer fraud persona. It's gone. He never even responds to it or mentions it anymore.
Wow.
Even his new newspaper man with the vetted military credits and such, he doesn't even, he talks about that a little bit, and he's off Facebook for days at a time now. Possibly he did get married. Let's be honest, Rob, when you're married you have other issues, so you can't sit on your computer and bang away threats and things like that hours on end. So it seems to be on March 13th he'll be 50. So we're trying to do something on the 13th if we can get it all done. It seems to be that even Kal Korff sees the futility in what he's done, and he seems to be slowing down. He seems to have other interests now. So all I can say, Rob, is that if anybody in the field and on the internet in general deserve this, Korff did, and that's why we're Korffing for a Korff-free internet.
FN, I want to thank you very much. We've got about 10 seconds left. Thanks very much for coming on. Come on back. Don't be a stranger. I'd like to hear how this story works out.
Absolutely. When we launch, I'll contact you.
All right. Thanks a lot. When we come back from the other side of this commercial break at 6.5 minutes past the hour, more on the X Zone.